Let's get into this discussion. Now, the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution says it's concerned about Chief Justice Raymond Zondo's remarks that he made during an exclusive interview here on Newzroom Afrika this week. It included the Chief Justice's views on former President Jacob Zuma's corruption trial, including the implementation of the recommendations of the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, which he chaired. Now, Casac saying Zondo's comments fall short of the conduct expected of judges. The organization urging Zondo to exercise restraint during public engagements. All right, let's try and get a proper understanding of what concerns Casac, and we speak to a senior researcher within that organization, Den Mafora, who speaks to us on the line. Mr. Mafora, thank you very much for your time. You believe that the Chief Justice, in his interview with myself, he went too far. How so?
Good morning, Corey. So the Chief Justice went beyond commenting on the implementation of the state capture recommendation. He went on to speculate about the reasons for the non-implementation. And you'll notice that throughout your interview, he kept referring to some people were saying, these people were saying, but not speaking for himself. And that to us is concerning, because the kind of things that, the kind of issues rather, that the Chief Justice was talking about do not form part of his job as a judicial officer and of his job as the Chief Justice of the Republic of South Africa. Now, what is concerning first and foremost is the Chief Justice's willingness to take media interviews, which is something that is completely unknown, or completely uncommon rather, among judges, specifically to avoid the kind of perceptions of judges as engaging in partisan politics and undermining the legitimacy of the office that they hold.
Let me try and challenge you a little bit on that one. He most certainly is not the first Chief Justice to give media interviews. He's not the first Chief Justice to speak publicly on platforms that perhaps do not address the matters involving the judiciary, but he will be invited, for example, to go and give a lecture at a university, which I think is something that he did recently in the Eastern Cape. So what exactly does the law prescribe for the head of the judiciary? So
the Code of Judicial Conduct has categories of speech or engagements that judges can engage in. And this applies to all judges. There's no exceptions for the Chief Justice. And so when you speak about him delivering a lecture, that's perfectly fine. If he's invited to give a lecture, if he's invited to give a speech on a particular topic, that's perfectly fine. But what you do not have is the Chief Justice going on to, or any judge actually, going on to a televised interview where he is asked questions, like questions about whether or not the former President Zuma should be prosecuted. I mean, that is, and for him to offer an answer to that question is a very clear overstepping of those boundaries.
I'm going to beg to differ with you, sir, in this regard, because, as I say, he's not the first Chief Justice to have given a media interview, and there are interviews that he has actually given in the recent past with media colleagues. So I'm not so sure why now, I guess, is the concern. Perhaps it's got to do with the strong views that he holds. And I want us to hone in on one of the issues that you picked on. Let's, for example, take state capture. He talks specifically about people who appeared before his commission, and he went as far as to state the position that was held by the Minister of State Security, for example, and he questions why that person, given the kind of information, given the kind of evidence that came out of the state capture inquiry, why that person would still be part of the executive that is led by President Cyril Ramaphosa. And the question, of course, has to do with whether or not South Africans watching this should be concerned when government says it is dealing with corruption, and whether they should be taken at their word. Is it not allowed to express frustration?
Look, the first thing I want to say is the fact that she's not the first Chief Justice to do this doesn't mean that it was ever acceptable. It was objectionable then, and it is still objectionable now. And
so why didn't you object then? Why did you not object then?
Well, but that's not the point. I mean, if is the argument that if we don't object at a particular point, you're not allowed to object ever in future? I mean, I think that misses the point that we're making about how important the legitimacy of the judiciary is, and how important it is for judges to stay above the fray of partisan politics, and that the kinds of remarks that the Chief Justice has been making has taken him into or can be seen as taking him into the arena of partisan politics, where then it becomes fair game and it becomes open season to openly question judges about the decisions that they make because of the kind of vulnerability that comes with this greater openness to the public. And on the question of the State Capture Commission, the Chief Justice knew very well when he accepted the position that the recommendations of the Commission would not be binding on the President. And this is a legal position that has never been changed. And so he knew that. And there was never any expectation that this Commission would be any different. And so, yes, he's frustrated. Yes, we are all frustrated. We at Casac work in this area trying to get Parliament, trying to get the government to implement those resolutions. That is our job. That is the job of civil society. That's the job of organizations like Corruption Watch, like Open Secrets, people who have been following the process from the beginning to its very end.
Okay.
But so the job of the Chief Justice was to chair the Commission. The Commission has been chaired. He has had his recommendation over. Whatever failures are there can be dealt with, and we can hammer it out as civil society, as it were. And the Chief Justice should go back to his role as Chief Justice and carry that out properly.
All right, and I wonder where freedom of expression would come in here, particularly for a man who holds the Chief Justice's position. But I'm desperate for us to move to another important topic that was included in your statement, and that is your concern about him opining on the case that is faced by the former President Jacob Zuma. I want us to take the viewers on board here and just listen for a little bit on his response to a question I posed. And the question, perhaps to preface it, the question had to do with whether the courts, and by extension South Africans, should be concerned when courts take a decision and they decide that the person must be convicted and sent to jail, and instead of implementing that, the government of the day decided that they were going to extend or give the former President Jacob Zuma remission in order for him to not serve this sentence, and they gave the explanation. But let's just take a listen to what Justice Zondo had to say about this.
As long as the National Prosecuting Authority says it's got enough evidence to justify prosecuting him, he must be prosecuted. Let the country know that the NPA and the courts will have done their part, and let the executive deal with the public at that time. So I would not say that any trials must stop. I think we must continue doing what we believe is right. The NPA believes there is a strong case against him. That's why they are pursuing the charges. The courts are there ready to conduct a fair trial and assess evidence. And if they find that he is guilty, they will look into what the appropriate sentence should be and impose a sentence that will fit the circumstances.
Mr. Mafora, I'm hoping that you have heard those remarks from the Chief Justice. Does he at any point get into the merits of the case that is faced by former President Jacob Zuma, or is he expressing, yet again, that word I used earlier, frustration?
Well, it's a bit of a difficult one because judges generally do not speak about cases that are pending before any court. And so that itself, beyond what was said, which from what I'm hearing is just him saying that if the NPA has a case, then they should continue. Which really, I mean, I don't know if you found anything new that he said in that, but the mere fact, the mere fact that he has taken the opportunity to address you or to answer a question which he could have politely declined on a pending matter is itself concerning.
Mr. Mafora, with the greatest of respect, sir, the Chief Justice leads the courts or the judiciary in this country. Is he not allowed to express frustration at what, at least at face value, would appear to be a waste of the court's time and resources trying someone who the government, again, at face value, I'm not saying that this is the approach that government is taking, but at face value, government does not seem to have the appetite to jail the former president. Is the Chief Justice not allowed to say this surely would be a waste of the court's time? And that's why he says, well, if government you're going to take this approach, tell the public that the NPA would have done its job, the judiciary would have done its job. Is it not allowed to say that?
Colleague, none of that is established fact, so the Chief Justice is not allowed to say that.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. Dan Mafora, he is a senior researcher within the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution.